The silent threat. The colony world of New Eden died without a sound. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge of the EDF Hyperion, staring at the sensor readings that made absolutely no sense. New Eden had been home to 12 million people just 3 days ago. Now, the entire planet lay dark and silent, its sprawling cities nothing more than cold metal and stone under a starless sky. "Run the atmospheric analysis again," she ordered, her voice steady despite the hollow feeling in her chest. Lieutenant Park's fingers flew across his console, but she already knew what he would find. The same impossible readings they'd encountered at the other 3 colonies. No radiation signature, Captain. No chemical weapons, no biological agents, no debris from orbital bombardment. Park swallowed hard. It's like someone just turned off the lights. Permanently. Sarah's jaw tightened. 4 colonies in 2 months. 47 million lives snuffed out without a single shot fired, without a single enemy ship detected. The greatest mass extinction in human history. And they didn't even know who was responsible. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Rodriguez called out, her dark eyes wide. "We're picking up something from the surface. It's faint, but it's definitely there." Sarah was at her station in 3 quick strides. "Show me." The reading was barely a whisper against the background noise of space, but it was there, a subtle oscillation in the planet's electromagnetic field, like ripples in a pond long after the stone had sunk to the bottom. "Download everything," Sarah ordered. "Every frequency, every variation. If there's a pattern here, I want to find it." She turned to her science officer, Dr. Emily Winters. "What do you make of this?" Emily studied the readings, her weathered face creased in concentration. "It's not random noise. These oscillations, they're too regular, too structured. Whatever did this, it affected the entire planet's energy grid simultaneously. Not just the artificial power systems, but the natural electromagnetic field of the planet itself." "Is that even possible?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. 3 months ago, she would have said no. But 3 months ago, humanity thought it was alone in this arm of the galaxy. "Theoretically," Emily's voice was grim. "If you could create a device capable of manipulating energy on a quantum level, you could potentially drain every joule of usable energy from a system. But the power requirements would be..." She shook her head. "It would be like trying to drink an ocean through a straw." Sarah's tablet chirped with an incoming priority message from Fleet Command. Her security clearance barely had time to process before Admiral Wong's hologram materialized on the bridge. "Captain Chen, we've detected similar energy signatures at the edge of the Arcturus sector. Whatever's doing this, it's not finished. I'm ordering the Hyperion to investigate. You're the only ship close enough to make it in time." Sarah felt the weight of 47 million ghosts on her shoulders. "Understood, Admiral. But we still don't know what we're dealing with. If we encounter the same weapon, then we'll finally know what we're up against," Wong interrupted. "Better to lose one ship gathering intelligence than to lose another colony flying blind." Besides, a hint of a smile crossed his weathered face. "The Hyperion isn't just any ship. And you're not just any captain." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her crew and the devastating silence of New Eden below. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with recycled ship's air that suddenly felt too thin. "Navigation," she called out. "Plot a course to Arcturus. Maximum burn." She turned to address her crew, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that she felt in her gut. Whatever this enemy is, whatever weapon they're using, they've made one critical mistake. They've shown us their hand without showing us their face. And now they're about to learn something about humanity that every supposedly superior species eventually discovers. She walked to the main viewport, watching as New Eden's dead cities fell away beneath them. "We don't need to be the strongest, or the most advanced, or the most numerous. We just need to be clever enough to turn an enemy's strength against them. And if there's one thing humans understand better than anyone else in this galaxy, it's how to adapt. The Hyperion's engines flared to life, pushing them away from the graveyard world and toward whatever waited for them in Arcturus. As the ship accelerated to FTL, Sarah made a silent promise to the millions of silent voices they were leaving behind. The enemy thought they understood power. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Power play. The Hyperion dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Arcturus sector, sensors immediately sweeping the surrounding space. They didn't have to search long to find what they were looking for. The Nexari ships hung in space like crystalline chandeliers, their translucent hulls pulsing with contained energy that made Sarah's eyes hurt to look at directly. There were 7 of them, arranged in a perfect heptagon around a small mining colony on Arcturus IV. They hadn't noticed the Hyperion yet, too focused on their task. "Energy readings are off the scale," Emily reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "Those ships, they're not just generating power, they're gathering it. Like cosmic vacuum cleaners." Sarah watched as tendrils of pure energy began to flow from the planet below, drawn up through the atmosphere in spiraling ribbons of light. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like watching a spider spin its web in moonlight. "Open a channel," she ordered. "All frequencies." "Ma'am." Rodriguez looked up, startled. "Are you sure, Thats? If we're about to die anyway, we might as well know why." The response was immediate. A figure materialized on their view screen, its form seemingly composed of pure light given barely coherent shape. When it spoke, its voice resonated through the ship's hull like crystal singing. "Your presence here is unexpected, but ultimately irrelevant," the being said. "We are the Nexari, and we have come to correct an imbalance in the universe." Sarah stood from her chair, facing the alien directly. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. The only imbalance I see is you murdering millions of innocent people." The Nexari's form flickered with what might have been amusement. "Murder implies malice, Captain. We harbor no ill will toward your species. We simply understand what you do not. That power must flow properly through the universe. Your kind, you waste energy. Squander it. Build cities that blaze with light when darkness would suffice. Launch ships that tear holes in space-time when chemical rockets would reach your destination eventually. Every human colony is a wound in the fabric of reality, bleeding energy into the void. And you think that gives you the right to play judge, jury, and executioner. We do not judge, we correct." The Nexari's form pulsed brighter. "Your species is young. You treat power like children who have discovered matches, with more enthusiasm than wisdom. We have spent millennia learning to channel the very essence of existence. Observe." The energy streams flowing from the planet intensified, and Sarah watched in horror as every light on Arcturus IV began to dim. But this time, she could see exactly how they were doing it. "Emily," she whispered, "are you seeing this?" "Yes." The science officer's fingers flew across her console. "They're creating some kind of resonance field. It's like they're matching the frequency of every energy source on the planet, and then shifting it slightly out of phase. The power doesn't disappear, they're collecting it." The Nexari continued, either unaware or unconcerned by their analysis. "We do not destroy energy. We simply redistribute it to those who understand its proper use. Once we have finished our work here, we will move on to your other colonies, and eventually to Earth itself." Sarah's mind raced. The Nexari weren't just powerful, they were arrogant. And in that arrogance, they'd just revealed exactly how their weapon worked. "Lieutenant Park, prepare to broadcast the sensor data we collected from New Eden. Full spectrum, maximum power." The Nexari's form flickered again. "Your attempts to resist are futile. You cannot hope to match our mastery off." "Oh, we're not trying to match you," Sarah interrupted. "We're just going to give you exactly what you want. Rodriguez, send the signal. Now." The sensor data from New Eden burst from the Hyperion's communication array, not as information, but as pure energy, perfectly matching the frequency of the Nexari's collection field. The alien ship's crystalline hulls suddenly blazed with unexpected power, their carefully maintained energy web disrupting as they struggled to contain the surge. "Full reverse," Sarah ordered. "Get us out of their range." The Hyperion's engines roared as they backed away from the chaos they'd just unleashed. The Nexari ships spun in their formation, their perfect heptagon falling apart as they tried to compensate for the power overload. "How dare you!" The Nexari leader's form was practically strobing now. "You cannot comprehend the forces you are playing with." "No," Sarah agreed, watching as the alien ships began to crack under the strain of their own technology. "But we understand irony pretty well. You want to collect power. Here's 47 million people worth of it, all at once. Consider it a donation to your cause." The view screen exploded in a cascade of light as the first Nexari ship shattered, its collected energy releasing in a spectacular burst. The others quickly followed, their own containment fields collapsing under the strain of trying to absorb too much power too quickly. When the light faded, the Nexari fleet was gone. Arcturus IV still gleamed below them, its lights still burning bright against the darkness of space. Sarah collapsed back into her chair, her hands shaking slightly. "Damage report." "Minor systems fluctuations from the energy discharge," Park reported. "But we're stable. The colony below is reporting no casualties. Whatever the Nexari were doing, we stopped it before they could complete their harvest." "Ma'am," Rodriguez called out, "I'm picking up transmissions from the other colonies in this sector. Word's spreading fast about what just happened here. They're calling it the like show heard round the galaxy." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we've identified the threat and developed a potential countermeasure. And tell them," she paused, looking at the still glittering debris field where the Nexari ships had been, "tell them that humanity just taught the galaxy a lesson about power. It's not about how much you can take, it's about how much you can handle." But as the Hyperion prepared to jump back to friendly space, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. They'd won this battle, but the Nexari had been harvesting power across the galaxy for millennia. And if there was one thing humanity had learned in its own brief history, it was that those who had power rarely gave it up without a fight. The real war was just beginning. The spark of innovation. 3 weeks after the Arcturus incident, Earth's greatest minds gathered in the underground facilities of the Quantum Development Center in Geneva. The room hummed with nervous energy as Dr. Marcus Rivera stood before a holographic display showing the destroyed Nexari ships. "They're not invincible," he announced to the assembled scientists and military leaders. "Captain Chen proved that. But our victory at Arcturus was a desperate gamble that we can't repeat. The Nexari will adapt." Admiral Wong leaned forward in his chair. "What are you proposing, Doctor?" Marcus gestured, and the hologram shifted to show a complex network of interconnected energy signatures. "The Nexari see themselves as the universe's energy regulators. But they've forgotten something fundamental about power. It follows predictable patterns. Even their quantum-level manipulation has rules." Sarah Chen, recently promoted to Commodore after Arcturus, studied the display. "You're talking about creating some kind of counter-resonance field." "Better." Marcus's dark eyes gleamed with excitement. "I'm talking about turning the entire solar system into a power redistribution web. Every planet, every station, every ship, all linked together in a network that can absorb, redirect, and amplify energy at a quantum level." The room erupted in murmurs. Admiral Wong raised his hand for silence. The power requirements would be astronomical. "That's the beauty of it," Marcus replied. "We don't need to generate the power ourselves. The Nexari will provide it for us. Every time they try to drain one of our worlds, the energy won't disappear. It'll flow through our network, strengthening it. Like a cosmic immune system." Sarah stood up, walking to the hologram. "How long to implement something like this?" "With conventional methods." "Years." Marcus paused. "But I've been studying the debris from the Arcturus battle. The Nexari's crystalline technology. It's not just their ships. It's their whole approach to energy manipulation. If we can adapt their own technology, you want to use their weapons against them. Sarah finished. Again. On a much larger scale this time. Marcus brought up another display, showing Earth's defense grid. We've already begun modifying our orbital platforms with crystalline resonators. Each one acts like a node in the network, capturing and redirecting energy. The more the Nexari try to drain, the stronger our defenses become. Admiral Wong stood slowly. This is exactly the kind of arrogance the Nexari accused us of, using power we barely understand. No, Sarah interjected. This is exactly what makes us different from them. They'd hoard power. We share it. They impose their will on others. We adapt and grow stronger. They see power as something to be controlled. We see it as something to be understood. Marcus nodded. The network isn't just a weapon. It's a statement. Every human colony, every ship, every station working together. The Nexari think they understand power because they can move it around. We understand power because we know its true purpose: to connect, to build, to protect. The next few days were a blur of activity. Ships streamed out from Earth carrying crystalline resonators to every human colony and outpost. The Hyperion, now flagship of the defensive fleet, coordinated the massive effort to create humanity's greatest engineering project. Sarah stood on her bridge, watching as another resonator came online, its energy signature pulsing in harmony with the growing network. Status report. Network efficiency at 67% and climbing, Emily reported. The crystalline technology it's like it wants to work together. Each node strengthens the others. The whole system is becoming more stable as it grows. Marcus's voice came over the comm from his lab in Geneva. We're seeing something unexpected in the data. The network isn't just redistributing energy, it's becoming more efficient. Learning. Evolving. It's like we've created an artificial ecosystem. Sarah smiled. The Nexari spent millennia perfecting their control over power. We've spent 3 weeks learning how to let it flow naturally. I wonder which approach will prove more effective. Her question was answered sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected a massive Nexari fleet approaching the outer solar system. Not 7 ships this time. Hundreds. They're not here to harvest, Sarah realized, watching the tactical display. They're here to exterminate. They see us as a threat now. Marcus's voice was calm. The network is ready. Every human settlement from Earth to the Kuiper Belt is connected. We just need them to make the first move. Sarah opened a channel to the approaching fleet. The familiar crystalline form of a Nexari appeared, its light somehow harsher than before. Your defiance ends today, it announced. You have corrupted our sacred technology, twisted it to your primitive understanding. We will not allow this contamination to spread. Sarah met its gaze steadily. You still don't understand, do you? We didn't corrupt your technology. We improved it. You use it to take. We use it to share, and we're about to show you the difference. The Nexari fleet opened fire, not with conventional weapons, but with waves of energy-draining force that would have annihilated everything in their path. Instead, they hit humanity's new network. And the real light show began. Chain reaction. The Nexari attack struck Earth's defensive network like a tsunami hitting a spider's web. But instead of shattering, the web began to glow. From her position on the Hyperion's bridge, Sarah watched in awe as the energy-draining wave hit the first line of crystalline resonators. The network pulsed with stolen power, each node lighting up in sequence like stars being born. Energy absorption at 120% of projected capacity, Emily reported, her voice tight with excitement. The network isn't just holding, it's amplifying the input. Marcus's voice crackled over the comm. Do you see it? The pattern they're using? It's the same frequency they used at New Eden, just scaled up. They're creatures of habit. They don't know how to adapt. The Nexari fleet hung in space, their initial attack seemingly absorbed into nothingness. Their crystalline forms flickered with what might have been confusion. Impossible, their leader's voice resonated through the command channel. You cannot simply absorb this level of power. The energy must go somewhere. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Oh, it's going somewhere. Marcus, initiating Phase 2. Commodore, you might want to warn the fleet to adjust their view screens. This is going to be bright. The network of crystalline resonators began to pulse in a complex rhythm, each node firing in precise sequence. The stolen energy didn't flow back toward the Nexari fleet. It flowed between the nodes themselves, building in intensity with each cycle. What are you doing? The Nexari leader's form wavered. This is not possible. You cannot. We can't control power the way you do. Sarah interrupted. But we can understand it. Guide it. Work with it instead of trying to dominate it. Want to see what that looks like? She nodded to Marcus. Now, the network exploded into brilliance, but instead of releasing its energy in a destructive burst, it created something new. A lattice of pure power formed between the nodes, expanding outward to encompass the entire solar system in a web of light. Multiple Nexari ships experiencing containment failures, Emily reported. Their energy collection systems are being overwhelmed by the feedback. The alien fleet's perfect formation began to break apart as ship after ship struggled to handle the cascade of power flowing through space. Their own energy manipulation technology worked against them, trying to absorb power that was never meant to be controlled. Your species is young. The Nexari leader spoke again, its voice distorting. You cannot comprehend. We comprehend perfectly. Sarah cut in. You see power as something to be taken and stored. We see it as something to be shared and transformed. And right now, you're experiencing the difference. The lattice of energy continued to grow, each pulse of power strengthening the connections between nodes. The Nexari ships that tried to retreat found themselves caught in the web, their own technology forcing them to interact with the energy field. Network stability at 98%, Marcus reported. The crystalline resonators are actually becoming more efficient as we use them. It's like they're learning from each other. Sarah watched as more Nexari ships began to break apart, their carefully maintained energy collection systems unable to handle the chaotic flow of power through the network. But something caught her attention. Not all the ships were being destroyed. Emily, analyze the survivors. What's different about those ships? The science officer studied her readings. They're adapting. The ones that survive are the ones that stop trying to collect the energy. They're learning to let it flow through them instead of trying to contain it. A new voice came over the command channel, different from the previous Nexari leader. This one seemed less harsh, more contemplative. We have existed for millennia, it said, believing ourselves to be the masters of power. But in 3 of your weeks, you have shown us something we never considered. Power is not meant to be mastered. It is meant to be understood. Sarah stepped forward. Call off your attack. Work with us instead of against us. There's room in this galaxy for both our approaches, if you're willing to learn as well as teach. The surviving Nexari ships began to power down their collection systems, their crystalline forms dimming to a subtle glow. The energy lattice surrounding the solar system pulsed once more, then settled into a steady, shimmering pattern. Perhaps, the new Nexari voice said, it is time for us to evolve. But even as the immediate crisis seemed to be resolving, Sarah's tactical display lit up with new warnings. Long-range sensors detected massive energy disturbances from across the galaxy. The remnants of the Nexari Empire were fracturing. Some ships and stations maintaining the old ways, others attempting to adapt to this new understanding of power. The war wasn't over, but its nature had changed. What began as a fight for survival had become something else, a battle for the very future of how energy would be used throughout the galaxy. And humanity, the youngest species involved, found itself at the center of it all. Burning bright. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, The Hyperion drifted at the edge of what was once Nexari space. The view through the main screen showed a galaxy transformed, literally glowing with interconnected webs of power that linked thousands of worlds together. Hard to believe it all started with us trying to stop them from drinking our planets dry, Sarah mused, standing beside Marcus at the bridge's observation window. The scientist had officially joined the Hyperion's crew as their chief of energy systems, a new position created specifically for the post-Nexari era. The universe has a sense of irony, Marcus replied, adjusting a holographic display showing the latest power flow readings. They wanted to control energy. Instead, they sparked an evolution in how every spacefaring species thinks about power. The ship's sensors pinged, detecting an approaching vessel. The crystalline form of a Nexari ship shimmered into view, but unlike the harsh, angular designs of the past, this one flowed like liquid light. Admiral Wong's voice came through the comm. Commodore Chen, the Nexari Collective is ready for the final integration. Are your systems prepared? Sarah nodded to Marcus, who pulled up the master control interface for Earth's defense network. Ready, Admiral. Though I still can't believe we're doing this voluntarily. The Nexari ship's representative, Speaker of Harmonies, as they called themselves now, appeared on screen. Their form was softer than the old Nexari, pulsing in rhythm with the background energy fields rather than trying to dominate them. What your species showed us cannot be unseen, the speaker said. For eons, we thought ourselves wise because we could gather power. You showed us wisdom lies in understanding how power naturally flows. Marcus activated the integration sequence. Across human space, thousands of crystalline resonators began to synchronize with their Nexari counterparts. But this time, there was no battle, no attempt to overwhelm or control. Instead, the two networks merged like rivers, joining to form something greater than either. Energy communion at 30% and rising, Emily reported from her station. The efficiency gains are incredible. Power output is nearly double what either network could achieve alone. Sarah watched as new patterns of light spread across the galaxy map. The joined human Nexari network was already revolutionizing everything from space travel to colony development. Worlds once considered too resource-poor to settle were now viable thanks to the improved energy distribution. Not all of your people accepted this change, Sarah noted to the speaker. Reports still came in of isolated Nexari holdouts, clinging to the old ways of power hoarding. No more than all humans immediately embraced sharing technology with their former enemies, the speaker responded. Change is never universal, but it is inevitable. Those who adapt, survive. Those who evolve, thrive. A sudden surge in the power readings drew everyone's attention. But unlike 6 months ago, this wasn't an attack. The network was singing. There was no other word for it. Every crystalline resonator, human and Nexari alike, hummed in perfect harmony. It's beautiful, Marcus whispered, watching the data streams. The network isn't just distributing power anymore. It's creating new forms of energy we never even imagined possible. The speaker's form pulsed in agreement. This is what we forgot. In our millennia of gathering power, energy is not meant to be static. It must flow, change, evolve. Like life itself. Sarah thought about New Eden, about the 47 million lives lost before humanity learned to fight back. But their sacrifice hadn't been in vain. It had forced both species to confront their assumptions about power, about control, about progress itself. We're receiving requests, Emily announced, from dozens of other species. They want to join the network, the Centauri, the Rokari, even the Swarm Collective. Let them come, Sarah said. That's the real difference between our species now, isn't it? The old Nexari would have hoarded this power. We choose to share it. The speaker's form brightened, and in sharing, we all become stronger. As if in response, the network pulsed again, its light reaching further into the darkness between stars. Humanity's first steps into the galaxy had been marked by fire and fear, by the desperate fight against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. But they had done what humans did best: adapted, innovated, and turned a weakness into a strength. In trying to teach humanity a lesson about power, the Nexeri had instead learned one themselves. True power doesn't come from how much energy you can control. It comes from how much you're willing to share. "Send word to Earth," Sarah ordered. "Tell them the integration is complete. And tell them," she paused, watching the galaxy shine with new light, "tell them this is just the beginning." The Hyperion's engines hummed to life, powered by the very network they had helped create. As they set course for the next frontier, Sarah thought about how far it had come. From a species desperately fighting extinction to architects of a galactic power revolution, all because they refused to accept that superior force meant superior wisdom. The stars burned bright ahead of them, each one a reminder that in the end, the greatest power isn't in dominating the universe. It's in learning to become part of its dance. The end.